ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to the CSL StarCraft Remastered. It's Thursdays, of course, which means we're going to be doing SCR for you guys. I'm Joe. I'm here with Zombie Grub. How you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well. Excited to get to casting some Brood War. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, and I'm super excited because we actually have a bit of a double header here, guys. We're going to have Hawk versus TTEMINGYU. And I think it might be a bit lopsided because Hawk was undefeated so far. It looks like in the groups, and TTEMINGYU's been TTEMINGYU has been struggling a bit. But we're gonna be getting into our first map. It's Tau Cross. So I think we're gonna jump into this without any further ado.
Is the stream live?
Yeah, the delay.
Oh, you just didn't have any pre-show on? Gotcha.
Yeah, I had like 30 seconds.
Okay. Cool. Hopefully everything works then, guys.
Yeah, so we're gonna be hopping in here, spawning in the top left-hand corner, the red Zerg player. It is Hawk.
And in the bottom right has the green Protoss. He is Pulse.
Pulse is TTEMINGYU.
Yeah.
For you guys that are looking at the overlay that we do have up here. ZVP in Brood War. It's I think we've had a lot of ZVP so far. People seem to be gravitating towards the Dragoon Zealot style. That's what we've seen the most of, and the Zerg's trying to make it to lurkers. And it'll be interesting to see if Hawk can make that work. I think he is favored going into the groups we talked about, or going into this match rather. I think we talked about that a bit.
Yeah, he definitely is 4-0, so really just looking very powerful against TTEMINGYU is so hard to say. to say Pulse. Against our Protoss player who is 2-2. Of course, that could always be like, maybe a little bit lucky on the bracket. Maybe we're just better against one race than the other. So it does not automatically mean that Hawk's gonna win, but it is like a good sign anyways. It's like the first time I've got to cast outside of that one group, it feels like, because I was absent for like 2 of the weeks. So I'm excited to see what these guys, like someone who's still got 4-0 in this group, is actually to show. And I think this is one of the first, like maybe the second ZVP I got to cast. I was lucky in getting a lot of Terran matchups, which I definitely know the most about, but ZVP can be a lot of fun. As you said, people gravitating towards, I think, basic styles, the Zealot Dragoon up against Lurker Hydra, but there are a lot of like intricacies and interesting things that can happen in this matchup. And I know in Brood War, it's kind of hard to tell, I guess. Like sometimes these players haven't played in a long time, or like it's not so much build orders as it is just feeling of how they're playing. But I wonder what they both have in store scouting each other now.
Yeah, it's interesting because I mean, you talked about kind of players tend to be doing basic things. I think the game is just so mechanically demanding that even the higher level players here in the CSL, we had a guy that was B on IC Cup, had been a previous champion when Brood War was one of the main games in the CSL. One of the games with the highest levels of participants. But I think they just feel the most confident. It's like a mix of like people that are maybe just learning the game, and then old veterans that are like, I think I'm just gonna try to rely on my mechanics. I'm not gonna try to mind game them too much. I'm just gonna rely on making more stuff and actually being able to move more stuff across the map than my opponent, because that can actually be an issue in Brood War.
Yeah. Well, ZVP, I find it very difficult for Protosses to come back into this matchup. It has changed, I think, drastically from different periods of time. If they're really old school, then it was like gateway units. If they were kind of old school, but more like 2008, 2010, then it was, I guess, dominantly the Bisu, right, with DTs and Corsair. But then I think in the recent iteration of Brood War, with people out of Pro League, out of Kespa teams, just doing stuff on ladder, bringing the level back up to what they were used to, it seems like that's when the development back into like speed lots came back in, and actually very aggressive styles with Protoss on like front attacks. But I'm definitely not as familiar with this matchup or what these two players like ideas are anyways. I feel like the Zerg player is always solid to go for Hydra busts. and lurkers, that's like a pretty solid plan. But I think Protosses do have a couple of different choices about how they think they want to play this, like what they've known about Brood War, heard about Brood War.
Well, we do see Hawk firing up that lair. He's secured 3 hatcheries. Just going for that standard tech that we'd expect to see. Still just sitting on Zerglings in terms of military units. And taking map control. His Protoss opponent, he does have his cannon out, so I think he's pretty safe from just any kind of Zergling pokes or any kind of early game aggression like that. And it looks like these guys are just going to be kind of powering up their economies right now. No one opening with like a light speed attack into each other here.
Yeah. It's so difficult for Protosses, again, coming back, not just for like composition-wise, but also SimCity is definitely going to be, I'd say, the most difficult in this matchup. Like Terrans, yeah, it's great if they know how to wall off against Zerg rushes or Protosses, but like this matchup, a lot of it literally revolves around walling that natural, like holding on against a Zergling bust or a Hydra bust. And if you don't realize that gateway on top of the forge is in a wall, like you could be screwed and not even know it until Lings just slip right through.
Yeah, and I think we might be about to see that happening. A lot of Lings are starting to build up outside the base of the Protoss, and there are 2 Zealots here. Let's see if the wall's tight. Doesn't look like it.
Oh my god. I was like, I honestly have no idea what is tight between a forge and a gateway. I just know that it is impossible to tell, man. Like, I did not figure this out either. It's false.
Alright, so that is going to be the first game here. Really swift GG. Hawk busting right through. Luckily, we do have a doubleheader, guys. So it's not going to be over, even if the second game goes just as quick here.
Yeah, which I'm really afraid it might. Like, that is such a painful thing to lose to right off the bat. Not just because it's like, it's embarrassing, right? Like, any StarCraft 2 player would just be like, in tears right now. Like, oh, I didn't wall. Like, I'll demo my, but Brood was an entirely different beast, right? But like, it also shows just right off the bat, like, hey, I might not know how to wall, so you could just do that again, and I don't even know what to do. Like, I would do about it. Except he could, like, our Protoss player could literally just put down 5 cannons and be like, well, doesn't matter if it's on a wall now, sucker. But I don't know if that's a good idea.
Do the Great Wall of Pylons and just bust out when you eventually need to move out.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's really tough if you just and it's so hard to figure out how to wall. I know a couple guides are on Team Liquid, but then some of them are like map specific. They're not always like hard set rules, and I'm just like, oh, how do Protosses do this?
Yeah, it's definitely why I gravitated towards Zerg when I started playing Brood War.
Yeah.
The walling side of things is a little bit less important. But we are going to be hopping into our second game here in just a moment. So spawning here in the bottom left-hand corner, we have our white Zerg this time. It is Hawk.
And in the bottom right has our blue Protoss. His in-game name is Pulse, and his sign-up name is TTEMINGYU.
Do you think that's Japanese, maybe?
I feel like it's Korean with a double T.
Okay.
I forget what they call that, but it's like a. My Korean teacher said that the way that you do the sound is basically, or to teach yourself the sound, is to have a piece of paper in front of your mouth and then try and make it like move. So you go t, t, and like supposed to get it to like blow, but I that's my guess anyways, and not to be like, I don't know, too stereotypical. We do have a lot of Korean players, Korean ancestry, I suppose is the better way to put it, that either know because maybe their older brother played it, or maybe like even like actually their family did. Because yeah, it was super popular in Korea, and it does trickle down a little bit.
Yeah, we did have a lot of, it's hard to say if they're actually Korean. We haven't met a lot of these players, but we had a lot of guys with Korean-sounding names and typing Korean stuff in the chat.
Yeah.
So, definitely more than we see in SC2, so that's kind of a funny culture thing that you get to see.
Yeah, it is. It's not a name that I'm familiar with. I mean, it could be Japanese. I don't know. I'm usually pretty good at like deciphering which one it is, like Korean, Vietnamese, Chinese, whatever. But if it's like when it's like Romanized like this, it like makes it really difficult. But anyways, all we know about this guy really is that he's losing. And, that's tough. I think I was talking about building like you do the Great Wall of Pylons, what you said, right, or just building 5 extra cannons is another option. But you don't have to open up Forge Fast Expand, I think, anymore in this matchup. Um, I think it's a strong opener, but only if you know how to wall. I think you can open up Double Gateway. And while that's like more of, I think, an aggressive maneuver, especially if you put it on the front, like it can be aggressive, it also just, you simply have units, and that just sounds safer to me if I were to choose something.
Yeah, especially if you're not confident, right? Because then you can still try to defend with your units and move them around, and you can poke out and maybe have an idea of what's coming at you. It does look like we're going to see the Forge Fast Expand once again, though. And I'm wondering if Pulse is going to be able to find a way to make this tight, because I think losing twice in a row in the same fashion would just be devastating, right? Like, that's not how you want to end your regular season, or your first season at least.
Yeah. I mean, I absolutely agree. That's why it sucks so much to just have it reveal right off the bat. But maybe Hawk is like, I don't even want to cheese this guy out. It's so easy, really. You could try and just like spool the guy if you really wanted to get the game over with, but might want to play it to the macro game.
Yeah, he is maybe taking some hints from you, adding on additional cannons here, going up to 2 this time instead of just the 1. The first lings are arriving, but 1 cannon should be enough to ward them off. This wall, I don't even want to make a call.
Yeah, don't even bother.
I was gonna say I think you need 2 to block there, but like, I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea. It sucks too because like some things are different types of tight. With a StarCraft 2, you can just send an SCD through and you're like, oh, okay, that's obviously not tight. But it could be Ling tight, it could be Zealot tight, it could be Archon tight, I guess. Well, that should be more obvious. And you can easily make a mistake thinking that you're safe. But it looks like Hawk's not even going to bother using these Lings to test, He's going to respect the 2 cannons, continue getting drones.
Yeah, and once again, adding on his layer, he went for the base up a bit to the north. It's a bit hard to reinforce if you're attacked, but the attack path there is pretty long, so it's kind of an awkward trade-off. He's gonna hope that having these Lings out here gives him the map presence to see anything incoming, and lets him just drone up and mine safely there.
Yep. There's definitely a certain timing that you can wait for before you need to worry about the Protoss coming to your base. And before that, they really don't ever want to send a Zealot out to test your lanes. They're just going to be able to be your perfect scouters. But it's really interesting. In this matchup, we talk a lot about the wall of the Protoss player in the early game because it is very important. But then, as the game progresses, you got to start talking about walls in Sin City for the Zerg player. Speedlots become really deadly to certain weak points of the Zerg, and walls are their way of surviving as well. So, for instance, at Hawk's third, he could put like another Hatchery with Evolution Chamber, I think 2 Evolution Chambers, and then Sunken's behind it. And then that's like kind of the wall that he would have to set up. But you know what? He's going for a Spire really quickly. So I don't even know if he's ever going to be attacked if things go really well for him.
Yeah, so with the Protoss, we do have that Stargate coming out. I think we're probably going to see some Corsairs being produced out of there, get that map control, snipe off some Overlords, and at the same time, a couple of Zealots are going to move out and maybe try to push these Lings away as the Corsair moves out.
Huh. So not quite Corsair DT, but Corsair certainly to clear up Overlords just in general is not like a bad idea. And in this specific case, they'll be very helpful against the Spire if Hawk were to go into Mutiz. Doesn't look like it right now. He's actually just adding on Scourge to take care of the Corsair, and then getting to Hydralisk End while setting up a bit of a wall. Not at his third. Oh yeah, it's actually at both bases. Yeah, natural and third. Those are those kind of walls I was talking about. They can even be more elaborate than this. You want the Zealots to run literally around your hatchery to get to the Sunkens, but he's on his way to getting it.
Alright, these 2 Corsairs are going to come out, see if they can get anything cleaned up. The Scourges are going to meet him here, and they're going to get right on top of both of these, and not a great investment for Pulse.
No, unfortunately not. He's going to continue producing them. I mean, there's always the fear that that does lead to Mutiz, and Mutiz are even sometimes a staple. They can snipe High Templars as the game continues on. So you do kind of want Corsairs to help, and that's another micro trick that you're gonna have to perfect is actually Corsair versus Scourge micro. Otherwise, I think the Scourge is a little too good.
Yeah, they're actually gonna try to get maybe right on top of this Stargate. No, it looks like they're content to just get the scouting info in the main base. Gonna go uncontested there. Looks like our Zerg actually going up to 4 bases here. Well, Protoss is just sitting on 2. I'm starting to get a little bit worried for Pulse as this economy continues to boom for Hawk here.
Yeah. Oh, certainly, like, Hawk is getting, I think, a lot of, getting away with a lot, really. There's definitely a time where I think Protoss has to kind of acknowledge what's going to happen, but then they should be powering up themselves with a pretty nice attack, and unfortunately, Pulse just hasn't been able to do anything at all. So he's got to really hope that this powering up of speedlots that's happening now with all these gateways and High Templars can eventually give him a strong army, because he's actually going to be overwhelmed at this rate, and that's, you know, Zerg is supposed to be very swarmy, but in Brood War, it's swarmy with a hint of, like, Protoss OP unit. Its supply can actually be less, and still do very well, even though it looks like a big old swarm.
Yeah, now he's going to see this base, that it's all sunken up as well. Not going to be super vulnerable to any kind of pokes or attacks here. I think at this point, Pulse is trying to just wait for that storm and then move out with a big attack and try to kill him before he gets that critical mass of units up.
That's going to be difficult to do. Of course, in Brood War, you do have not only Storm, but you also have Kydarian Amulet. So they just pop with near enough to Storm, basically. That's actually a huge pivotal moment in a lot of these games. If, for instance, Hawk were now being aggressive with the Hydras, but Hawk seems very content to just take advantage of all this time he's been given. So a lot of upgrades on the way, like Carapace, melee, maybe going into a Hive after this upgrade's done would not be too bad either.
Yeah, we are seeing mostly Hydra production with a lot of Lings to act as that buffer. And the Zealot count's starting to get pretty high here. It looks like Pulse feeling a bit of confidence. He's moving out on 2 bases, so remember, it's super important that he deals a lot of damage here. And it looks like he's going to be going straight for the natural of Hawk, which is very well defended. So it's going to be tough to make something happen.
Yeah. Although I don't see, and it's really hard to see, so I'm actually a legit quick question here. Are there any lurkers?
I haven't seen any lurkers being made yet, no. It looks like, no, there's still just a Hydra den. He's trying to get that group spines out. The Zealots are going to get in here. Big storm on top of these Hydras actually goes very well here, but the Sunkens are doing a lot of damage, and this Sim City is holding the line.
Yeah, that Sim City is definitely good enough. So the lurkers are finally morphing, but I'm definitely surprised he hasn't gotten those yet. I think skipping even, you know, whether it's range or speed for the Hydras, either one, I think getting lurkers, well, can be the right choice, but those are just actually morphing. Yeah, he still doesn't have, yeah, he's just researching it now. Well, his Hydras do have all their upgrades at this point, speed and range, and as long as he holds his bases, I guess he can wait a long time to get to lurkers, and that would be okay. But those storms, man. Those storms are pretty deadly. Yeah,
they were good storms, too. I mean, they got right on top of the Hydras. It's hard to try to get them out of the way. Looks like he's just he's being indecisive. Like, right now is Pulse's moment, right? The moment that we see those first couple lurkers out, this army is not going to be doing well trying to push into that with a Sim City, and because of Pulse's economic situation, he really wants to be trying to make something happen here. He's continuing to bounce back and forth between these bases. I'd love to see him just pull the trigger and try to make something happen, even if he's, you know, a little bit worried that maybe he doesn't have enough to try to break in.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Hawk also has a ton of Hydras, a ton of supply up top, but not defending here. So it really is just the Sim City that is stopping Pulse from pushing in.
Well, here we go. He's going to get right on top of this once again, trying to target down that Hydralisk then. That would be a bit of a tech reset, which would be nice for him. And that's going to open up the Sim City. These Zealots thinking they can get in, but not wanting to push into those Sunkens once again.
Yeah, I guess not. I mean, 4 Sunkens is a lot of damage, and again, those Zealots will derp out constantly. Actually, it's 5 Sunkens and 1 in the back. So it's not necessarily a bad idea, but it's got to be frustrating for him. The macro on the backside is a little stalled, I guess I'll say. Like, their base is up, but there's not been any probe transfers or probe production on it. And in fact, we have Hawk now setting some Lings there.
Yeah, it looks like Pulse is waffling towards the back here. He wants to try to make some kind of defense. There's 4 cannons in position, but none of them are able to stop these Lings from picking off the pylon here. Small gateway army is going to be enough to clean this up, but what do you think of just having 4 cannons up there? Like, if you're going to drop that much defense, why not have something that can shoot the ramp?
I think it's a common mistake, to be honest. I realize this is my like own play, for instance. It's like, you know, I'm not too great either. Where it just seems more obvious that they would attack you from that side because your natural is on this side, but then you realize that there's so much space between your natural and your third. Doesn't make you realize like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. That they would just go up that ramp. I'm dumb. Like it's just that moment. So he'll probably add more cannons on there.
Okay, pretty big Ling move out here from Hawk. Maybe looking to just clean up some of the map. The pylons on the map here. Probe for any weaknesses in the Sim City of Pulse. He doesn't want to be facing Pulse's main army here with this little harassment group, but he's actually doing a great job of pulling him out of position if he wants to try to run through here.
This is pretty nice. There are 2 cannons though from very early game that are going to be able to help. These Lings are getting upgraded, even going to 2-2. In like a minute here, getting adrenal glands, which are super good. Finally, we're on that high tech, I suppose, which means that ultras could also make a play in this game. Though I don't see any additional tech coming down hive-wise. But lurkers have finally formed, and they're both at even supply, so really it's going to come down to control when these engagements happen. Do storms blanket the army, or do lurkers burrow on top of some unsuspecting units?
Mutas are out now. They're going to be looking for any kind of weak TIE Templar, maybe poking around here. They want to be dodging the Dragoons, obviously. And this is kind of an awkward scenario where it looks like both players are looking to be moving out a little bit. Hawk more kind of poking and needling. Pulse feeling that the pressure's really on. He has to make the kill right now. But this is going to be really tough because the lurkers are out.
The Observer Snipe is a pretty common maneuver for the Zerg, but I don't see anything trying to. The Overlords aren't really in position, so all of those lurkers were killed. They're stormed, they're taken up by the Dragoons. There is a counter of the Mutas and Lings cleaning up the 3rd base, and it's getting like a little bit into a base trade, but Hawk has so many more units coming down from the north bases.
Yeah, and he's out of the buffer units, all those zealots. He's out of the heavy-hitting storms. It's just going to be Dragoons against Lings. And with those adrenal glands, the Lings are shredding through them, getting on top of everything. That's a full army reset of Pulse here, and Hawk still has a decent army left that he's going to take complete control of the map up with.
We finally had some DTs made. Templar Archives giving access to both High Templars and Dark Templars. So maybe a temporary time buyer, as I don't see Hawk bringing in those Overlords yet. He did get Overlord speed, so it would be pretty easy there. He finally grabs a couple.
Oh, this DT has to be careful or he's going to go down with just the splash. And with the DT down, I think that's going to be about it for the defense of Pulse here. A couple of Corsairs out on the map, but not offering much other than sniping off the Overlords. GG is called. And that's going to be the end of Hawk versus Pulse.
Yep. Hawk continuing with that score, perfect score, so 5-0 now. Looking quite good.
Yeah, really solid for him. We do have another series for you guys coming up in just a minute here. It's going to be Harem Master versus Ninja. So don't go anywhere because we will be right back.
Lost again.